Chapter 836, Punishing Some People to Warn the Rest. Yale Sass wiped off the blood on his mouth and provocatively glared at Tang Xiu as he slowly got up from the floor. His unruly and unyielding display generated loud applause from the prisoners around him. It was obvious that they wanted to watch a good show. The grim-looking Giddy sneered, "Granted that you've saved us, you want us to pledge loyalty to you so you can humiliate us, isn't that right?" "Humiliate you? Do you think you have the competence to be humiliated?" derided Tang Xiu. "Don't forget, I have your life in my hands. A mere thought of mine can make your soul scatter, forever prohibited from reincarnating. I admit you're very powerful, that you can make specters submit to you is a feat that I admire," replied Giddy with a heavy voice. "In my eyes, the world is where the strong prey on the weak. So we're willing to work under you since you're stronger and even rescued us from prison. But spare your damn arrogance, for we only promise to follow and work for you. But never will you imprison us to another cage." "Humph," Tang Xiu snorted as a Mitsubishi Army knife twirled and pierced Giddy's heart instantly. Even after he pulled out the knife from Giddy's back, he turned it around to Giddy's neck and neatly cut it, causing his head to fall down. "What?" Except for Spectre and the Amos and Amosai brothers, the other 200 prisoners had a drastic change in expression. The smile on their faces froze and their bodies turned rigid while filled disbelief in their eyes. They were also vicious and ruthless, but still far away from Tang Xiu, who directly killed an expert merely out of discontentment, a show that shocked and shook their souls. Tang Xiu shifted his eyes to Yale Sass and apathetically said, "Which one will you choose if you must pick, death or absolute obedience?" Yale Sass's anger had disappeared in a flash. Tang Xiu's dreadfulness had already shocked him, but he was now more horrified after seeing his ruthlessness. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, however, he couldn't just accept his face being trampled on. "I can obey your orders, but you still have to respect us. Besides, I don't think you will kill all of us here since you've done everything possible to save us." Tang Xiu shook his head while smiling. He formed a seal with his hands as a huge flame appeared around Yale Sass instantly. It was like invisible gasoline was poured around Yale Sass as the fire blazed and set the guy alight outrageously. "Arg!" A tragic scream came from Yale Sass's mouth. He majorly struggled, moving up and down, falling to the floor, rolling back and forth and more, yet the flame burned stronger. Tang Xiu took out the cigarette and lit it up with the flame from his finger, then took a deep puff twice. Then he sneered, "You want to talk respect with me? What absolute ludicrosity. You should have been tortured to death in that labor camp 1319 and met your death a long time ago. I'm the one who gave you the second life, so obey my orders. You know what? You're nothing but an ant in my eyes. Do you think an ant deserves to be respected?" The billowing voice rippled around and instantly spread out to everyone's ears. In that instant, all the observing prisoners were shocked by the horrifying ruthlessness shown by Tang Xiu. Their anger was also ignited after hearing Tang Xiu's humiliating remarks. Yet, none dared to speak despite their indignance as they instead watched Yale Sass being burnt to ashes by the blazing flame. Bam! The door to the gambling hall was pushed open and everyone looked to the disruption in a flash. It was Shui Gui, now dragging the drenched Gillen Toma. As he came to the front of Tang Xiu, he respectfully said, "This guy just ran away and I caught him, boss." After speaking, he directly dumped Gillen to the floor. Tang Xiu nodded with a dim smile. Then he watched Gillen, who had just jumped up from the floor, and asked, "I spent some energy and efforts in rescuing you from prison, and you also promised to pledge loyalty to me. Yet you broke your own word when you ran away and wanted to betray me?" Seeing Giddy's dead body on the floor immediately shook Gillen's heart. However, he gritted his teeth and bit the bullet. "You've rescued me indeed, but everyone has their own aspirations. What I want the most is freedom, not to be shackled and restricted by anyone. I'll naturally pay back your grace in the future, but I'll never give you all of my life." The smile on Tang Xiu's face grew brighter. He watched Gillen's solemn expression and applauded. Not bad, you do need freedom indeed. Gillen looked excited and hurriedly asked, so, you'd like to let me go? Of course. Tang Xiu nodded and said, not only will I let you go, but I'll also send you to a heavenly place myself. Gillen looked jubilant and turned around toward the gambling hall's door under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Tang Xiu flicked the cigarette butt and spoke with a crisp voice. I've already told you all that the life of each prisoner I've purchased from prison is forever under my control, right? I also said that I have cast a forbidden seal on you all. I can make your soul scatter with only a mere thought and you will never reincarnate. Whoosh. A wind appeared out of nowhere, propping up Tang Xiu's body to float half a meter high. With arms folded behind his back, he coldly shouted, die. Gillen's body, who was quickly heading outside, suddenly turned stiff and blood sprayed out of his mouth in a frenzy. His body then fell softly to the floor with no breath left. Spectre, who stood nearby, had a change in expression. He flashed to the side of Gillen and then put his fingers on the guy's nostrils. Half a minute later, he struggled to stand up from the floor, observing Moa and his group, and cupped his fists as he said, Spectre will always be loyal to you, boss. He died, just like that? Nearly 200 prisoners in the gambling hall watched Gillen Toma's body with a flustered and horrified look. Back when Tang Xiu killed Getty by manipulating the Mitsubishi Army knife and then burned Yale Sass with flames, it was still in their scope of cognition, but when Getty died after Tang Xiu merely shouted at him sent a quake that stirred their souls. Could it be that what he told them was true? That he had control over their life and death and he even could send them to die instantly? The vision of the nearly 200 prisoners slowly shifted towards Tang Xiu, who was standing in the air. They cupped their fists with a frightened look, yet their voices were surprisingly in sync. We will always be loyal to you, boss. Tang Xiu nodded in satisfaction and casually said, though your mouths can say good things, it's meaningless to me. What I want to see is your actions. Of course, I don't mind if you betray me because no matter if you flee to the ends of the earth, you will die immediately should I will you to die. How did you do it, boss? Asked Spectre. I cast a restriction seal on the body, precisely, the heart, explained Tang Xiu. But you're weak, making it so you are unable to sense that you're under control while I can clearly sense it. Just wait until your strength progresses by leaps and bounds, then you will be able to sense its horror. All the prisoners were so frightened that their faces turned ghastly pale and fear filled their eyes. At this moment, they finally realized their tragic end if they dared to go against Tang Xiu's will. Looking at their expression, Tang Xiu felt more satisfied. He even wanted to thank those three fellows for being reckless with their lives. If not for those three, how would he have warned the rest of these former rouges to completely obey him? However, he also knew that continuing with such strong intimidation at this time wouldn't help without giving the carrot. Only by using the carrot and stick technique could their hearts be truly subdued. Hence, Tang Xiu looked around and spoke again, there's no need for you all to be restless and anxious. I'm not one who indiscriminately kills those without sins, nor do I resort to wanton killings. As long as you're loyal to me, not only will I not harm you, I'll also reward you. I'll impart you a set of immortal cultivation techniques after we arrive at the next temporary location you all will be staying at. As long as you practice it seriously, your strength will rapidly increase in the future. You will even become thousands of times stronger than you are right now. Although Chen Yan's parents were Chinese, she had lived abroad with her parents since childhood and had never heard of immortal cultivators. Therefore, she gathered her courage to ask loudly, Boss, what exactly are immortal cultivation techniques and how should we cultivate? Also, you said that, by practicing it seriously, can we really be thousands of times stronger than we are now? Be patient. You'll naturally know what immortal cultivation techniques are and how to cultivate them once we arrive at our next temporary base, answered Tang Xiu. As for whether you can be thousands of times stronger than the current you, in the end, it's up to your own efforts. I'll definitely work hard, boss, said Chen Yan loudly. Tang Xiu had a bit of a good impression towards this lucky woman and he nodded in response at her words. After discouraging these people, he casually spoke some more words and left directly, while Jing and the rest then disposed of the 2 dead bodies and the pile of ashes on the floor. Prior to this incident, all the attendants had been ordered to go out because Tang Xiu had to have a show. They now came back, but after Tang Xiu ordered these people not to make things difficult for the staff, the prisoners now treated the attendants with a much better attitude. Even some of the desperados who had planned to take the beautiful waiters back to their rooms to vent their anger didn't dare to have such ideas now. The world had a lot of women everywhere, but they only have one life. If they were to molest these waiters on this liner and then Tang Xiu killed them, that was not worth the price and was utterly stupid. As daybreak came, earthquake-like news rocked Israel. In just a few hours, all countries all over the world learned about this huge sensation. The warden of Labor Camp 1319 abused his power for personal gain and organized inmate matches in the underground fighting arena, eventually leading to the successful escape of 201 prisoners from the prison who were nowhere to be found. Chapter 837, The Survival of the Fittest. An uninhabited island less than 10 kilometers in area and fully covered by forested hills was seen in the vast sea. The highest peak was nearly 100 meters high and was full of lush vegetation all year round due to the tropical climate. Land on the island. After the passenger ship anchored on the shore, Tang Xiu floated to walk in the air as he took the lead to land on the island under the watchful, yet shocked and enthusiastic eyes of the prisoners who observed him. Mo and the rest then closely followed and stood in a row on the shore. As for the purchased prisoners, they were like a scattered swarm of bees rushing towards the shoreline. With hands folded behind his back, Tang Xiu stood in the air and said in a deep voice, I'll give you 2 days to organize your team of 11. I want to see them orderly with strict discipline implemented. Of course, you don't need to pay any attention to someone if they dare to disobey your orders. Just tell me directly who they are and I'll make them die here. Mo knew that Tang Xiu wanted to eliminate a group of people here, so he deliberately asked loudly, Boss, do you want to drill them like the elite special forces, or do you want them to train as they wish once in a while? Tang Xiu instantly caught the gist of Mo and shouted in a deep voice, all of Tang Xiu's men have been, and will always be, strong elite warriors. You all know the rules of the jungle, the weak are nothing but prey for the strong. It's survival of the fittest. And now, I won't hide anything from you all. Except for those 3 dead men, there are still 197 people left. But the number I can bring with me from this island will not exceed 150, for there would be too many people. In other words, if too many people can't adapt to my drills, no more than 100 of you will be able to leave this uninhabited island alive. A burly black man hurriedly asked, We want to know the elimination criteria, boss. You just asked a good question, said Tang Xiu happily. The elimination criteria is, in fact, very simple. Those who don't obey orders, slack in training, kill each other, and attempt to escape will all be eliminated. What about the final elimination criteria, boss? Quickly asked that burly black man again. Will we not be assessed according to our individual combat force? Assessing individual combat force is too shallow an assessment, as there are some stronger and weaker individuals among you all, said Tang Xiu scornfully. If my memory serves me correctly, some of you are just average people but quite competent in some aspects outside individual combat prowess. It's simply unrespectful to these talented people if you just eliminate them based on this criterion. At this time, nearly everyone understood Tang Xiu and firmly memorized the 4 elimination criteria mentioned by Tang Xiu in their minds, and complied loudly. Tang Xiu then looked at Spectre and lightly said, You don't have to take part in the training. Follow me to walk around the island. I need to use an array formation to hide our traces. Array formation? Spectre trembled inside. He had heard about this array term from legends and had also witnessed its might. Back when he was still in prison, Tang Xiu eventually used an array to trap him inside. 2 days later, Tang Xiu had covered the entire island with an array formation. The island would appear uninhabited should outsiders look at it from the outside. They wouldn't be able to discern anything inside it. Spectre was left with nothing but shock after seeing the illusion array. Tang Xiu's knowledge and expertise in array formation made him admire Tang Xiu more. He couldn't wait to obtain the said cultivation technique and possess these mysterious abilities as well. Not bad. When Tang Xiu returned to the front of the crowd with Spectre, he looked satisfied after seeing 5 orderly lines of people. These wild and unruly convicts turned out to be able to cooperate with each other. They were working hard and training conscientiously, albeit under the threat of death. Even Mo and the others had already accomplished Tang Xiu's goal of teaching these people knowledge about acupoints and meridians. Imparting and transmitting the cultivation technique itself was an easy and simple issue, but due to the high number of people, Tang Xiu still had to spend several days imparting the cultivation technique to everyone. On the coast, Tang Xiu floated in the air and shouted in a deep voice, "I've already imparted you with what I should teach you. I don't care what special abilities you've ever had, but know that I'll give this medicinal pill to the first 10 people who reach the early stage of qi refining. Remember, only 10 people. So work hard." 10 people? Everyone's spirit soared immediately and a firm look could be seen in their eyes. To become stronger and be able to fly in the sky like Tang Xiu was something they longed for. They secretly made up their minds to go all out in cultivation and strove to compete for the top 10 places. In the days that followed, the training sessions were extremely arduous. Even though Tang Xiu gave everyone a few hours to perceive the flow of energy every day, most of the time was still spent on physical drills. After 10 days passed by, the enormous amount of physical fitness training made these people suffer terribly, both physically and mentally. Even some of them couldn't persist and tried to escape, causing Tang Xiu to obliterate them without emotion. 20 days later, the surviving ones had gradually adapted to the inhuman training. Even though the amount of training kept increasing every 2 days, they had been able to persevere. On the 30th day, only 182 people were still alive apart from Spectre, yet nearly all of them had been thoroughly remolded in just a month of inhuman drills. They even had a completely new mental outlook from before. Unfortunately, there were only 5 people who could sense the flow of energy in their body and control the flow of qi in accordance to the circulation route of the cultivation technique, setting foot into the early stage of qi refining. These 5 people were Spectre, Amos, Amosai, Zhang Xiaohua, and the last that was quite a great surprise to Tang Xiu, Chen Yan. "Are you sure you can control the flow of qi in the meridians according to the cultivation technique I taught you?" asked Tang Xiu in a deep voice while looking at Chen Yan's much thinner face. "I'm certain," answered Chen Yan. For a while, Tang Xiu was silent and then asked again, "Have you tried your hands with other techniques similar to the cultivation technique?" "Does Qigong practice count?" asked Chen Yan. Tang Xiu instantly understood why Chen Yan could break through to the early stage of qi refining. The practice of Qigong was also a method of cultivation, only that the quality and grade of the energy produced was very low. Despite that, it gave Chen Yan a foundation to cultivate with. When she had transformed the qi she had cultivated into true essence and became familiar with how to control it, she eventually became a cultivator at the early stage of qi refining. Whoosh! A silhouette rushed from the distance lightning fast and then stood before Tang Xiu in just a few breaths. It was Shui Gui and he reported with a reverent look, "Report about this month's surveillance, boss." There was a total of 66 recon planes passing by in the sky above us, as well as 122 military helicopters, 52 cruisers, and 23 warships in the nearby channels with 14 trips back and forth. But last week, we only got 2 warships passing by and no recon planes, nor a military helicopter. Continue the surveillance. Tang Xiu nodded in satisfaction and said, "We'll leave this place after another week. Also, tell Ao to see me. I want to ask him about something else." "Roger that, boss." Shui Gui accepted the order and disappeared before Tang Xiu. A few minutes later, Mo Og quickly appeared in front of Tang Xiu in a black uniform. He didn't wait for Tang Xiu's inquiry and respectfully said, "Boss, we've figured out the various countries' scouting force through the intel from our outside contact. We also learned the news about the prison situation in Israel." "Tell me," said Tang Xiu. After a month and a few days of searching, the temporary scouting team mobilized by the various countries have been recalled one after another, leaving only Israel and the surrounding countries who are still searching for us. "It will still be a bit troublesome for us to leave now since there's a chance that we may encounter one of them," said Mo. "Also, our plan kind of fell apart. Not only was the prison's vice warden not promoted to a warden there, but he was also transferred from labor camp 1319 and is still being interrogated by interrogation experts from various countries. There's also news from Gus Gillis saying that his men suffered a great loss due to the big crackdown operation carried out by the government to clean up underground forces. I'm afraid that the plan to help him become the kingpin of Tel Aviv's underground forces will have to be put on hold for a while, until we get out of the limelight, so to say. Also, he wants our contact details as well." Tang Xiu shook his head apathetically and said, "Tell him to stay under the radar for half a year and we'll send our people to help him in 6 months. Also, there's no need to give him our contact details." "Understood," said Mo. "Pass my order on. We'll stay for another week here and then evacuate immediately by then," said Tang Xiu once again. Mo looked hesitant but still spoke. "There's also a message from our liner, boss. It said that we're running out of food and the ship needs to resupply." "How so?" Tang Xiu frowned and said, "Ever since we landed on this island, we have never eaten the reserved food on the liner. How can it be consumed so fast? There are only 20+ crew and attendants on board. The reserve food on the ship should be enough for them for a few months." "I also asked about that, boss," said Mo with a forced smile. "Most of the food was spoiled because the weather has been too hot and had to be dumped." "The weather?" Tang Xiu's expression moved and he immediately let out a wry secret smile. Little did he expect that he would overlook this reason. After mulling over the issue for a short while, he directly said, "You go and tell the captain that we'll do some hunting on the island. Tell them to also do some fishing and get some fish for themselves for a week. We'll definitely get enough food for everyone for half a month." "Understood," replied Mo. The last 7 days marked the end of everyone's drills. Under the leadership of Mo's team, members of the 5 squads were divided into 5-man teams and began to hunt on the island. There were many wild animals on the island even though it was small in size. Though nearly all the food they had been eating these days were prey they had hunted, the number of wild animals here somehow was still a lot. Finally, a message passed over from the liner on the 7th day, saying that they had enough of a meat reserve. If they were able to preserve it for a long time, they would have enough for the next half-month. The moment Tang Xiu received the news, he immediately ordered to stop hunting and return to the liner. He also had hunted a lot of wild animals secretly in these 7 days, all of which were stowed away inside his interspatial ring. Even if the wild animals' carcasses stored on the liner were to be spoiled many days later, the carcasses stored in the interspatial ring would still be enough for everyone to eat for a while. Chapter 838, Just a Third of My Strength. South China Sea, Clam Island. Yuan Yi, who had been notified in advance of the cargo ship's arrival, had been waiting for a long time at the northern port before a large cargo ship finally docked. When he saw Tang Xiu floating down from the ship, his tall figure rushed a few steps forward to greet him. "You're finally back, boss. Our previous actions were a big display, so I had to delay for a while on our way home," said Tang Xiu with a smile. "But I brought you the people you need, they will stay here to help you later." "Where are they?" quickly asked Yuan Yi with a surprised but happy face. Tang Xiu turned around. After staying silent for 10 seconds, he smiled and pointed to the direction of the cargo ship and replied, "There they are." Yuan Yi looked towards the direction of Tang Xiu's finger. But when he saw a line of men and women of Caucasian, African, and colored descents, the expression on his face turned into wonder. He took some glances at them and then looked at Tang Xiu with a forced smile. Are you perhaps teasing me or something, boss? You told us to train those children and turn them into the most elite immortal cultivators, to build an army of immortal cultivators. How and where did you get these foreigners from? Do they even understand the path of becoming immortal? I already taught them the immortal cultivation technique and 5 people have already stepped into the early stage of qi refining. Tang Xiu nodded and said, just give them some time and use some cultivation resources on them. I'm sure that most of these guys can become immortal cultivators in no time. But boss, they are all beginners, said Yuan Yi with a helpless expression. How can they teach people? You. Tang Xiu raised his hand to interrupt him and said, don't you want to know their origins? Their origins? Yuan Yi wore a blank expression and looked confused as his eyes landed back at the foreign men and women debarking from the cargo ship. After 10 seconds or so, his pupils suddenly shrunk and his eyes gleamed. He caught sight of some familiar faces among them. Boss, where did you get these evildoers? These pariahs? Do you know them? Again, Tang Xiu raised his hand to interrupt him and asked thoughtfully. Yuan Yi was unable to groan and felt weak inside as he replied with a forced, wry, and bitter smile, I know a few of them. Some comrades who have fought side by side with me, some enemies I once fought in the battlefield, and there are 2 faces. 2 faces that are extremely wicked and vicious. Notwithstanding the fact that I haven't yet crossed paths with them, none of them are easy to deal with. They are prisoners, convicts that I bought from Labor Camp 1319 in Israel, said Tang Xiu with a pale smile. I used some means to subdue these fellas and they will be our everlasting feast hall's peripheral members later. Also, they will be yours to manage other than Spectre. Hiss. Despite having a firm mind, Yuan Yi was still shocked and gasped after hearing Tang Xiu's explanation. Awe could be seen sparkling in his eyes as he hurriedly asked, Labor Camp 1319 is the world's most horrifying large prison. Those detained there are highly dangerous criminals sentenced for no less than 100 years, and yet, you were able to buy so many criminals from there? You see, money makes the world go round, it can even make the devils work for you, said Tang Xiu with a smile. Besides, it's not so difficult to achieve by resorting on some means and flexing your muscles. Yuan Yi understood in a flash, yet he still said with a bitter smile, but boss, giving me all these outcasts is kind of too tough of a job for me. Although I'm confident that I can defeat them, they are still vicious and unruly. Managing them will prove to be quite difficult. I have their lives in my hands. They will only meet one end if they dare to disobey your order, death, said Tang Xiu. My request is that you must also drill these guys when you train the children. Carry it out with the harshest of military discipline and do your best to smoothen out their wild and unruly characters as fast as possible. That way, they can become qualified members of the everlasting feast hall quickly. Yuan Yi's expression stirred and he immediately replied, that would not be a problem then. Tang Xiu inhaled deeply and slowly said, but keep in mind one thing. You must repeatedly brainwash them. Make them loyal to our everlasting feast hall and pledge fealty to me. I don't want the internal harmony of our everlasting feast hall to get disturbed due to them joining. I'll do my best, answered Yuan Yi, a wry smile on his face. Tang Xiu was silent for a moment and suddenly said, I'll assign Zidane, Feng Yang, Shui Gui, He Wuya, and Yi San to temporarily stay here and help you. Contact me directly if there's a problem you can't solve later. Yuan Yi knew that these 5 men including Zidane were the elites of the everlasting feast hall, who had been selected to become Tang Xiu's bodyguards. Any one of them was much stronger than him, causing the worries in his heart to finally vanish without a trace. With those 5 staying to help me, I'll definitely train these evildoers you brought from Labor Camp 1319, and turn them into a qualified elite force of our everlasting feast hall, boss. Tang Xiu patted his shoulder and looked at the crowd who were now lined up with their respective squad. He spoke in a deep voice, I'll introduce you to this man. His name is Yuan Yi and he will also become your highest commander during your stay in Clam Island. His orders are my orders from now on, and you all must obey him unconditionally, else, don't blame me for being ruthless later. Understood. Most people complied with a respectful face. However, two middle-aged men in the squad stood out, wearing a strange expression. Who gave you the order to get out of line? Get back to your position, scolded Moa as he strode to block the two men. We have something to say, said one of them loudly. Tang Xiu narrowed his eyes and observed the two men and said, I don't know if you have ever trained under military discipline, but from now on, remember to ask permission to leave the squad if you want to speak. All right, you two can come over. Moa coldly watched the two men and gave way to them. The names of the two men were Killstrom and Stan Matthew. As they came to the front of Tang Xiu and Yuan Yi, the former said, Boss, we are acquaintance with the commander you just mentioned and we used to be comrades in arms in the past. We are crystal clear of his combat prowess and we admit that he's very strong, yet he's just a bit weaker than me. Since he can become a commander, I think I can take the job as well. Tang Xiu let out a strange smile and he shifted to Stan Matthew and asked, Do you also have this idea?
Yeah.
We are Yuan Ye's friends, but we refuse to regard him as our immediate superior, nodded Stan Matthew without hesitation. Yuan Yi, these two buddies of yours have fought with you side by side and they are not convinced that you're worthy to be their leader. Tang Xiu chuckled and said, Is there something you want to say to them? Yuan Yi was aware of his two friends' characters. He let out a confident smile and strode quickly to the front of these two men. He opened his arms wide and smilingly said, Killstrom, Stan, I thought you two bastards were dead long ago. Never did I expect that you two would be alive and kicking before me now. After the hugs between the men, Killstrom said with a bewilderingly laugh, We made you stay in the team back in the past, but you still insisted to leave back then and we lost contact with you all these years. It turns out that this palace is your nest, huh? Now I really admire the boss more, you know. To think such a guy like you is willing to pledge your loyalty to him, that's awesome. You see, I've always been a member of Everlasting Feast Hall so of course, I'm the boss's man, said Yuan Yi. I'll always be his man when I'm alive and will forever be a revenant under him after I die. Stan Matthew grinned and said, Spare the nonsense, will ya? We brothers can reminisce about the old days later. But you gotta beat us first if you wanna be our commander. I gotta tell you, brother, we are much stronger than we were back then. Yuan Yi creased his brows and smilingly said, I guess you're getting stronger indeed, but to me, there's still a chasm between us. Nevertheless, I won't hold back. If you want me to smack your assess, just remember buds, don't cry if you lose. Weeping? What a boast. Stan Matthew mocked back and instantly sent rumbling punches to attack Yuan Yi. His style was truly vicious as each of his strikes was targeting Yuan Yi's vital portions. Killstrom didn't rush to attack but watched the two men engaged in a fight with folded arms. He was stronger than Stan Matthew, so he knew that if this guy could defeat Yuan Yi, there was no need for him to continue fighting the latter. Bam! After successively avoiding more than 10 strikes, Yuan Yi finally smirked strangely. His fists then counterattacked in a flash and barraged Stan Matthew's chest as his leg swiftly and fiercely whipped toward the side of Stan Matthew, and flogged his face, directly sending him flying before he heavily fell on the beach. FYI, I just used a third of my strength, grinned Yuan Yi. Killstrom was utterly stunned. He didn't expect that Yuan Yi would directly defeat Stan Matthew as soon as he started to fight back. Adding more to his shock, he could hardly believe that Yuan Yi actually said that it was only a third of his strength. My turn. Killstrom instantly jumped forward and barraged Yuan Yi with his punches unreservedly. Yuan Yi confidently smiled and put his right hand behind his back, only using his left to block Killstrom's attack while he kept using his footwork to change positions. Eventually, his left hand grabbed Killstrom's attacking fist after more than a dozen moves. Get down. His foot then instantly kicked Killstrom's chest lightning fast, causing the latter to fling upside down 7+ meters away. Yuan Ye's figure then flickered and all the prisoners could see was a hazy shadow in front of them. The next moment they were able to catch his figure again. Yuan Yi had appeared in front of Killstrom and spoke. "You've made some progress, old buck. But the rift between you and me is substantial now, like I told you. Nevertheless, don't lose heart. You chose to follow our boss, so you'll be as powerful as I am in the future." Having said that, Yuan Yi looked at the pale-looking Killstrom who covered his chest before he stretched out his hand and pulled him up from the ground, after the latter gasped for breath twice. Tang Xiu faintly smiled and spoke while watching them. "You've lost. So you are no longer qualified to stop Yuan Yi from becoming your immediate superior. You must obey his orders during your stay on Clam Island. Disobey him, and death will come to you without mercy." "Aye, sir." Chapter 839, The Richest Man in Qinglin County. A few days later, Tang Xiu had returned to Jingmen Island and arranged for Spectre to join the Everlasting Feast Hall. After accompanying Gu Yan for a few days, he took Moa's team to Qingcheng Mountain in a hurry. Before leaving, he had contacted Long Zhenglin, but the result was disappointing. Long Zhenglin had rushed to Qingcheng Mountain and found traces of Wang Hao, but the man kept avoiding him. Red silk flower was the best ingredient to concoct blood-seizing pill as it had strong compatibility, and was an unusually powerful agent to divide the energy, the two properties that brought an excellent effect of improving the physical strength of immortal cultivators. It was rather urgent for Tang Xiu to break through the blood and qi circulation stage of Star's tyrannical body, because he knew that once he reached this stage, he would be on par with ordinary cultivators at the stage of nascent soul. After rushing all the way, Tang Xiu and Moa Wu's group of 6 finally arrived at Qingcheng Mountain. More precisely, they arrived at a small town decked out in a classical style called Qinglin County. Though county was located in a very remote part of Sichuan, its economic development and prosperity were comparable to some small prosperous counties in the southern region. The number of permanent residents here was not many, but it was a famous scenic and tourist spot in China that attracted a lot of tourists every season from all over the world. On the wide avenue here, 2 taxis were heading to downtown Qinglin County. Tang Xiu was riding on the second taxi while watching the scenery outside, especially the looming mountain in the distance. He fell in love with this place the moment he arrived. Suddenly, Tang Xiu was surprised to find a Star's poster hanging on the billboards, buses, and even the high-rise buildings around. "From the looks of it, Zhang Xinya is quite famous in your county, isn't she, uncle?" The taxi driver was a rather ineloquent man, but he seemed to have the mood to converse when he heard Tang Xiu's inquiry. A smile appeared on his dark face as he answered, "Well, we've kinda been stuffed with the news and coverage of that big star, Zhang Xinya, on TV and the web in the last half-month. Ever since the preparation of the opening sale for the Golden Goblet Emperor Ga's Villa complex. All the media massively covered the news of Zhang Xinya's arrival to our place half a month ago. Even the big boss of this villa complex spent quite a fortune in publicity. It's just an opening sale for the villa complex, there's no need to invite such a big star, no?" Tang Xiu was astonished. "After all, your county town is kinda small. Little brother, you thought that our place is just a small county, so it's not worth it to ask a big star for publicity," said the taxi driver with a smile. "I just feel that's a bit too exaggerated, honestly." Tang Xiu shook his head. "Not really that exaggerated, to be honest," said the taxi driver. "The Golden Goblet Emperor Ga's Villa complex is the most luxurious villa complex in Qinglin County. Those who buy in the complex are rich and powerful people from the outside." "Well, you don't know where the villa complex is located it seems, else you'll definitely be interested if you have money." "Tell me then," requested Tang Xiu. "The Golden Goblet Emperor Ga's is built halfway up the highest hill peak on the outskirts of Qingcheng Mountain. It's not in our Qinglin County town, but about 5+ kilometers northward from us, which is at the foot of that said mountain. And today, that highest hill has been transformed into an upscale neighborhood which boasts luxurious dining, entertainment, culture, and other facets of establishment for the luxurious complex. It's equal to a status symbol for those who live there. Of course, above all else, the Golden Goblet Emperor Ga's Villa complex is within a scenic spot of Qingqing Mountain, and ordinary tourists are not allowed to enter it. It seems like the one who established this villa complex is quite a great figure, right? Asked Tang Xiu with a smile after quickly understanding the story. That's only natural. He's from the richest family in Qinglin County, Wang Shuigang, the younger brother of the vice abbot of the Taoist monastery in Qingqing Mountain, said the taxi driver with a smile. Qingqing Taoist monastery? Tang Xiu's expression moved and he asked more, where is this Qingqing Taoist monastery exactly? Is it also within the scenic tourist area? No, it's quite far, on a higher peak of Qingqing Mountain, to be precise. The taxi driver shook his head and said, ordinary tourists won't go there. Only a few who are devoted will go there to consecrate and burn incenses. Tang Xiu nodded and no longer inquired about the Qingqing Taoist monastery, and returned to their previous topic. So, did Zhang Shenya really come to Qinglin County? I don't know whether she has come yet, said the taxi driver. The opening sale event of the Golden Goblet Emperor Ga's Villa complex is to be held on June 28th, the day after tomorrow. Tang Xiu nodded and turned his gaze to outside the window. He didn't expect that he would visit this small county town at the same time as Zhang Xinya's visit. He didn't prepare to see her, nor did the villa complex interest him as he thought that it was best to avoid her if possible. It was an emotional entanglement that he was afraid of. He knew that Zhang Xinya obviously had feelings for him. He even received tens of calls from her in recent months, each of which he perfunctorily dismissed her in using a few words. Qinglin County, a famous and bustling Qimao city. After getting off the taxi, Tang Xiu searched for a tea house near the entrance of Qimao City while Mo Ao and Jin Shi entered the city. They would need cars to get to their destination, so Tang Xiu decided to buy 2 cars for convenience sake. After half an hour, Long Jinglin came running and panting from outside the tea house. When he saw Tang Xiu by the window, he ran over and took a seat at the opposite side of him, then picked up the teacup Tang Xiu had poured previously. He lifted it before gulping it down fully and said with satisfaction, "You're here, big bro. I've been in this damn boring place for more than a month and thought of every means but wasn't able to see that Wang Tao bastard at all." "All right, tell me, where's Wang Tao now?" asked Tang Xiu with a smile. "I've been asking around. I heard that he directly shut himself in at his family residence in Qinglin County after he came back from the outside," narrated Long Jinglin. "He's been like an old man from ancient times, just completely become a shut-in and hasn't even set a foot outside for more than a month, not leaving a shadow that I can see either. I visited his place a couple of times to look for him, but got driven out by his bodyguards." "Are you sure he's at home?" asked Tang Xiu. Long Jinglin looked around. After he saw that no one was paying attention to them, he lowered his voice and answered, "I don't dare to be 100% certain, but the news that he's at home is quite reliable. I've been hiding surveillance around his family residence in the last few days. There were 2 doctors from Qinglin County Hospital who went in and out about 7 times. You know, I tried to bribe those 2 doctors, but they refused to tell me anything about what they were doing in the Wang family, though." "Is this Wang Tao quite a powerful figure in Qinglin County?" asked Tang Xiu, surprised. "He's more than powerful. He's simply the crown prince here," answered Long Jinglin. "His father, Wang Shuigang, is the richest man in Qinglin County. Be it wealth or personal connections, the Qinglin County's locals call him an emperor." "Wang Shuigang?" A surprised look gleamed in Tang Xiu's eyes. The reason he came to Qinglin County was to buy the red silk flower from Wang Tao, who bought it for 12 million yuan. Tang Xiu planned on buying it for 10 to 100 times the initial price. But if Wang Tao was the son of the richest man in Qinglin County, this meant that he wasn't short on money. So it would be quite difficult to buy what he wanted with just money. Does this Wang Hao have any special hobbies or something? Yup. He likes a woman, a lot, smirked Long Jinglin strangely. Women? Tang Xiu stared dumbfoundedly and eventually shook his head, with a headache. There were a lot of women he could use when he was in the immortal world since brothels were practically everywhere. But he was on Earth now. Though there were also many prostitutes with good looks on Earth, it wouldn't be easy to find them in this small county town. Of course, judging from how rich Wang Tao was, this guy wouldn't spare a glance at ordinary women. He has no hobbies other than being a womanizer? Dunno anything else but that. Long Jinglin shook his head. Tang Xiu took a deep breath and slowly said, let's take a break today and learn about the situation of this place first. I'll visit Wang Tao's place tomorrow morning in hopes that I can buy that red silk flower. You can still resort to harsh means if the soft ones fail, big bro, said Long Jinglin. Wang Tao might be quite an expert martial artist and has a lot of bodyguards, but I believe you're far above him. Robbing won't do. We are not bandits. Tang Xiu shook his head. Unless Wang Tao is an evil person, we can only think of ways to trade with him. But if he's really adamant in not selling it no matter what methods we use and still is unwilling to compromise, I'm afraid we can only leave empty-handed. Tang Xiu and Long Jinglin then left together after a long while and checked into the most luxurious Sanbao 5-star hotel in Qinglin County. The room Long Jinglin had booked was a presidential suite since it was not tourist season at this time. On the 12th floor, in the corridor covered by beige carpet, Zhang Xiaoyu brought some shopping bags with a bit of a sad face. When she was about to walk to the elevator, its door suddenly opened. Huh? She saw a group of men coming out from the inside. The youngest man in front was vaguely familiar to her. But she didn't want to get into trouble as this place was unfamiliar to her, so she turned away and went straight to the stairs. Half a minute later, Zhang Xiaoyu quietly poked her head from the corner for the stairs. She saw that a group of people had already walked deeper into the corridor and she secretly felt relieved. Nevertheless, the puzzlement on her pretty face didn't diminish and grew more intense instead. She felt that she had seen that young man somewhere but she couldn't remember where she had seen him. Forget about it. I still need to send Xinya's clothes to the dry cleaner first. This grand lady is kind of in a bad mood recently. She'll keep nagging me if her clothes are not dry cleaned when we leave Qinglin County the day after tomorrow. Zhang Xiaoyu shook her head and came to the front of the elevator towards the rear of the floor. She opened its door and entered it before she pressed the first floor button and suddenly recalled something. I remember him. Chapter 840, Paying a Visit. The elevator that took Zhang Xiaoyu had arrived on the first floor, yet she didn't step out of the elevator at all. As she found that nobody else took the elevator, she pressed the button back to the 12th floor. Then, she enthusiastically ran back to the door of the 1206 presidential suite and knocked on the door. Hey, Xiaoyu, aren't you sending my clothes to the dry cleaner? Why are you coming back now? Zhang Xingya was holding a mobile phone with earphones plugged into her ears as she stood by the door. Zhang Xiaoyu squeezed into the room and excitedly said, guess who I just bumped into in the corridor, big sis? Zhang Xingya charmingly rolled her eyes in response to her words. With a lack of interest, she closed the door and went back to the sofa in the guest partition. She then plugged in another earphone to her ear with a downcast manner. No matter who you just bumped into, could you just please go and dry clean our clothes? If you can't get them done before we leave the day after tomorrow, just be careful, for I'll punish you by having you stare at me having a meal. Zhang Xiaoyu dumped the shopping bags in her hand on a single sofa and then strode to the front of Zhang Xingya's side and sat down. Then she said, I dare swear on tonight's dinner that you'll definitely regret it if you don't hear me, big sis. After saying that, she then realized that the sound coming from Zhang Xingya's earphone was very loud. She immediately pulled one of the earphones out and repeated what she just said. You do know that I'm in a bad mood, right? So, hurry up and say what you want to say, said Zhang Xingye helplessly. I can at least have my mind distracted by listening to music. You see, I just saw the person's picture on your mobile screen, said Zhang Xiaoyu seriously. The person's photo on my mobile photo? Zhang Xingye only spared a bit of attention to it and was preparing to plug the earphone into her ear again. But her stunning face suddenly froze, and even her hand that was just lifted up turned stiff. Tang. Tang Shou? Zhang Xingye abruptly got up and stared at Zhang Xiaoyu before hurriedly asking, Are you worried that I'm always in a bad mood, so you want to make fun of me? Or did you really just see him? Tang Shou? I dared to swear before, didn't I, big sis? How could I crack a joke just to tease you, said Zhang Xiaoyu with all seriousness. I really just saw the man that is on your mobile screen in the corridor. He's very handsome and was followed by 6 males. He also came to Qinglin County and stays on the same floor of this hotel, muttered Zhang Xingye in a jubilant mood. Quickly tell me, Xiaoyu, which room is he staying in? I don't know which one, though. I just saw those men and thought that they are not good people, so I avoided them and hid. Zhang Xiaoyu shook her head and said, I only saw their backs afterwards. I didn't even see which room they went in. Zhang Xingye quickly unplugged the earphone on the other ear before she grabbed her cell phone and headed outside at a jog. As she came to the empty corridor, she wandered for short while before she saw Zhang Xiaoyu and came running to her hurriedly. Xiaoyu, go to the first floor's reception counter and ask the staff where Tang Xiu is staying. No, never mind it, I'll go there myself. She rushed toward the elevator after saying that. In Presidential Suite 1208. Tang Xiu took 2 cans of beer from the refrigerator and threw one to Long Jinglin before saying, I gave the name of another man for you to ask around about. Got any result on this guy? Wang Rui asked Long Jinglin curiously.
Yeah.
That Wang Rui. I heard that he's from Qingqing Mountain, though I don't know much about his origins, said Tang Xiu. But this guy is quite powerful and he should also be someone rich. His style is kinda similar to Wang Tao like you told me since he always has bodyguards around and is kind of a flaunt. I asked around several times but never heard any news on this guy. Long Jinglin shook his head and said, I think he shouldn't be a public figure in Qinglin County. Tang Xiu's expression moved suddenly as he had a thought in mind. He immediately got up and said, Stay here and wait for me as I go see Wang Tao now. Maybe, I have a way to get the red silk flower from him. A few minutes later, Tang Xiu left the hotel with Mo. He didn't see Zhang Xingye who was asking the receptionist at the hotel lobby. Of course, Zhang Xingye herself didn't notice Tang Xiu as she didn't even look back and was full of anticipation for the receptionist's reply, the southern municipality of Qinglin County. There was a single villa building with its own entrance and courtyard. The European-style villa had 3 floors and looked extraordinarily stylish with its 2 meters high surrounding walls and painted glass, emitting out a blurry but radiant glory of the setting sun's radiance. In the courtyard outside and inside the guard post, 2 security guards in black uniforms were smoking cigarettes while having a chat. Honk, honk. A car's horn sounded and disturbed the 2 security guards inside. They pinched out the cigarette butt and one of them walked out of the post to see a brand new black car parked outside, before asking, What are you doing here? This is a private residence, strangers are not allowed to enter without permission. Mo got out from the car and ignored the security guard. Instead, he came to the rear of the car and opened its door. As Tang Xiu stepped out of the door, he looked around before shifting his gaze to the security guard and said, I'm looking for Wang Rui. The security guard was stunned and then replied with creased brows, Who are you? This place is the residence of our young boss, Wang Tao. Wang Rui doesn't live here. It's as I guessed. Tang Xiu smiled inwardly, yet wore a nonchalant expression. I know Wang Rui doesn't live here, so I'm going to see Wang Hao first. Pass the message that my name is Tang Xiu. The security guard looked at Tang Xiu suspiciously. He faintly sensed that the young man in front of him had an extraordinary status judging from Mo's attitude towards Tang Xiu. He hesitated for a while before he nodded and said, "Please wait here for a while. I'll go inside and ask." Inside the villa building, the pale Wang Tao was sitting on the sofa, looking lackadaisical with a lazy air emitting out of his whole being. His eyes were staring at the TV, but his pupils looked distracted and not focused on it. He obviously wasn't even watching the TV series at all. "Young Master Wang, a security guard just came in and said that someone is paying you a visit." A capable-looking beautiful woman in a gray suit walked inside and reported. Wang Hao came back to his senses and looked confused. "What did you just say?" The capable woman repeated the words she just said and continued. "The security also informed that the person was looking for Wang Rui at first, but then said that he'd like to see you since Wang Rui doesn't live here." Wang Tao frowned. After a few seconds in silence, he said, "Let him come in, since he's looking for Wang Rui." "All right." A few minutes later, Tang Xiu strode into the villa and looked at the young man sitting on the sofa. His eyes gleamed and he could confirm that this young man was Wang Hao, who seemed to have some illness. "May I know who are you?" asked Wang Hao, who still sat while looking at Tang Xiu. Tang Xiu let out a small smile and answered, "Tang Xiu from the Magnificent Tang Corporation." Magnificent Tang Corporation? Wang Hao was stunned and his expression slightly changed. He put on his slippers and stood up, then smilingly said, "I see, you're the big boss of the Magnificent Tang Corporation, Tang Xiu." No wonder why I felt vaguely familiar with the name the security guard reported to me. "May I know why are you coming to this small place, and also visiting this humble abode of mine?" Tang Xiu shook hands with him. After the two men took a seat on the sofa, Tang Xiu said, "I'm actually looking for Wang Rui this time. He has rescued a subordinate of mine in the battle in the South China Sea, and he also lost some of his men, so I made a special trip here to thank him and talk about something else." "The battle in the South China Sea?" Wang Tao seemed to recall something and quickly asked, "You mean my brother encountered some troubles in the South China Sea because he saved your subordinate, so then he had to fight those ability users?" "Correct." Tang Xiu nodded. Wang Tao looked at Tang Xiu's face and his expression turned more respectful. Although he didn't know the specific details of what had unfolded there, he also knew that the powerful figures in Qingqing Mountain had lost miserably because of that incident. Even his big brother, Wang Rui, had to receive a severe punishment and was now locked up and facing a wall in Qingqing Mountain to reflect on his mistakes. "I've been trying to contact Wang Rui, but his mobile is off all the time, so I can't get in touch with him," said Tang Xiu with a smile. "I heard him speaking about you, so I came to Qinglin County to find you, in the hope that I can ask you to pass him the news that I came here. Also, the elder who went with him that time is kinda heavily injured and I happen to obtain a certain medicine that has an excellent healing property." In that instant, all the doubts and suspicions Wang Rui had toward Tang Xiu vanished. His big brother, Wang Rui, was indeed accompanied by an elder from Qingqing Mountain who was responsible for protecting his safety. That old man was injured when they came back. "Boss Tang, are you, also, someone who walks on the cultivation path?" "I am." Tang Xiu nodded and asked, "Your brother hasn't told you my identity?" "I don't have the aptitude to cultivate, so I don't know much about cultivation." Wang Tao forced a smile and explained, "My brother is currently being punished by facing a wall in order to reflect on his mistakes inside the dungeon of Qingqing Mountain, after he came back, so he didn't tell me anything." "Brother?" "Big brother Tang, may I ask you about the type of medicine you obtained, like whether it's only effective for internal injuries?" "What's wrong?" "Now that I see it, your condition looks very serious." Tang Xiu smiled and asked, "You haven't found any means to treat it yet?" "You can see that I have an illness?" asked Wang Tao, surprised and amazed. "If I can't see it, then how can I be a cultivator?" said Tang Xiu. "Just looking at the color of your face, I can see that the cause of your illness should be from your kidney." "He's a cultivator?" Wang Tao was shocked inwardly and looked flustered. He jumped up from the sofa almost abruptly and exclaimed, "You're a Taoist cultivator? One who walks on the cultivation path to becoming immortal? If one's cultivation realm has reached a high level, it's indeed possible to ascend and become immortal," said Tang Xiu with a chuckle. Wang Tao furiously swallowed his own saliva and asked with a face full of hope and anticipation, "Big brother Tang, can you see whether I can also become a cultivator? Also, about my illness, could you help cure me? I'll definitely repay you if you can cure me."